Harmony Astrology up on the hill. I'm on a different hill today, changing it up a little bit. I can see the scenery around here. Still top of the hill, so we'll go with it. Anyway, we're going to do the astrology for May 17th to the 23rd, so heading into Memorial Day weekend for the US. Okay, lots of this long mental list of the aspects coming up for this week. Not super intense, but just a lot going on. Okay, so we're coming off of this new moon in Taurus. Okay, that was yesterday, about 1 p.m. Pacific time on Saturday the 16th, and very grounding, very much about establishing peace, about establishing a sense of serenity and security after years. You know, Uranus was in Taurus from 2018 up until recently, and it was really disrupting that area of life, our stability, our sense of security, our sense of peace. Okay, and so now with it gone, this is the first new moon in Taurus since 2017, really, where we can be at peace. We can make that peace. Uranus is gone. In fact, in 2018, in May of 2018, there was a new moon. That was the same day that Uranus entered Taurus. So ever since May of 2018, that Taurian realm has been disrupted and has been unstable. This is our chance to stabilize it, okay? Okay, so this new moon, sextiling Jupiter in Cancer, it's like instant fertility, that water coming down to fertilize this ground that we're setting, okay? So you think of the new moon in Aries, with the Aries stellium last month, opened the doors. The full moon in Scorpio cleared the space. Now we got this well-tilled soil, and it's being fertilized as we speak. Okay, the seeds are planted, and we're going from there. In addition, we have Mars conjunct Chiron right now, and Venus is actually sextiling that Mars-Chiron conjunction from Gemini. Okay, and that Mars-Chiron conjunction is in Aries. Chiron, just like Uranus entered Taurus in 2018, Chiron entered Aries in 2018, and it's about to leave here this summer briefly, come back to Aries, and then it'll be gone in 2027. Okay, but this is the fourth now conjunction of Mars with Chiron in Aries. We had one in 2020, 2022, 2024, and now 2026. And it's final. So that Mars is the ruler of Aries, so it has to do with our courage, okay, our ability to take action, okay, and so this is the last round of testing our wounds associated with our capability and our ability to take action as a sovereign individual, okay? And so we're at the end of it. You know, we finished up Uranus and Taurus, that lesson of having things unstable for a while and how do we live in that instability. And now we're finishing up this process of dealing with the wounds associated with our capability or individuality. You know, are we really a valuable individual, or are we just part of a group? And so this is really increasing that warrior mentality. That's really what's been happening the last 6 years. Okay, and that's over now. So we're completing some phases here. Okay, and then we get into the energy of this week, which is insane. Okay, so Mercury just entered Gemini. That's its home, one of its homes, this morning on Sunday, the 17th, and it is immediately going to be conjuncting Uranus in Gemini. So Uranus was in Taurus, now it's in Gemini. It's going to be in Gemini until 2033. And this is the first Mercury-Uranus conjunction. And Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. So they both have to do with like the mentality, mental realm, the wind, the air energy. You could probably hear it. I could feel the wind on my face. You could probably hear the wind on the microphone there. But it's a perfect situation because it's expressing the energy of this week. It's a very windy week. If we don't have our roots really grounded in from this new moon in Taurus, is giving us the ability to ground those roots. If we don't have those roots in there, like a tree in the wind, it can blow over. Okay, so the stronger your roots, the more you can handle the wind, and the wind is going to be strong this week. Okay, so like I said, Uranus is higher octave of Mercury. Their first conjunction in Gemini since 1948. So the 1940s was the last time that Uranus was in Gemini, and so this is a big deal. Okay, so not only is Mercury going to conjunct Uranus in Gemini, but it's going to conjunct the other outer planets. It's going to make a sextile to Neptune in Aries. It's going to make a trine to Pluto in Aquarius. It's going to square the moon's nodes in Pisces, Virgo. So lots of mental energy this week. So again, we've got to emphasize that grounding. If we're not grounded this week, we can get blown over, literally. Okay, if we are grounded this week, the ideas, the information coming in can be mind-blowing, and we can do a lot with it. Okay, so understand that big decisions might have to come this week as well, with that Mercury squaring the nodes. Where are we headed? You know, we're supposed to be aligning with our true north, our soul's divine path, not the habits of the past, but what we intended to come here for. And so Mercury is going to give us options this week, okay? In addition to that, we have that Venus sextile Mars, so that's happening right now with Venus in Gemini and Mars in Aries, but they're both going to change signs, just like Mercury changed signs this morning, went into Gemini. Tomorrow, on Monday, the 18th, we have Venus entering Cancer, Mars entering Taurus, and then they'll immediately form a sextile to each other in those new signs. And later in the week, that sextile is going to still be in play, and it's going to be forming an aspect to those moon's nodes, just like Mercury is today, throughout this week as well. And that's going to be a more gentle aspect, but the idea is that our true north is being tested this week. So the more grounded we can be, the better we're going to be able to tilt with that shift, okay? We don't want to get blown over and sent into a direction. We want to be grounded and decide on a direction. That's the key this week, because again, it's very windy, lots of information, lots of things flowing around. But what that Venus-Mars sextile from Venus in Cancer to Mars in Taurus has to do with is deliberate action that's aligned with our hearts. Okay, Venus in Cancer, like what do we really feel about things, and how can we take those first steps? Not crazy impulsive action like when Mars was in Aries, but deliberate step-by-step action toward our heart's desire. That's what this week is about, because our heart's desire is to align with what our souls came here to be ultimately. But there are little things in our lives that lead us there, okay? And so the more aligned we are, the more rooted we are, the better we're going to be able to navigate this. Another challenge this week, I would say, is when Venus in its new sign of Cancer squares Neptune in Aries, okay? This can be confusing because we're like, oh, our heart's desire, we want to take our little steps toward our heart's desire. Neptune in Aries is saying your full, spiritual potential here on this earth. And we're confused as to like, how could this, which is coming into my life right now, really lead to that? So it's confusing, okay? We've got to trust ourselves, trust our intuition to know that we know the difference between what is a distraction from our true north and what is something that doesn't logically align, but is part of our path, okay? So there might be illogical things that we're compelled to engage with that are leading us down our path ultimately. So that's a little bit of a challenge. Again, it's all this wind going on. And then we got this, intuitive challenge going on as well. And then the sun is going to enter Gemini on Wednesday, and it'll make its first conjunction to Uranus in Gemini since 1948, just like Mercury is making its first one today, since 1948. And so it's, again, this whole new world of information, bombshells, things that make us go, oh, if I knew that before, I wouldn't have done this. Now I know, I got to do this, okay? Lots of, again, mind-blowing information coming in this week. Mercury in Gemini will also sextile Saturn in Aries later in the week as well. And so again, that's reminding us to take personal responsibility for making the decisions that have to be made this week. Okay, so busy week, busy, but our main goal, our main strategy for dealing with the busyness and all that wind is grounding, rooting, making sure we're making decisions from that place, from our hearts, and making deliberate action. We don't have to go wild and crazy this week. Just the more stable and peaceful we are, the better we'll be able to take those deliberate actions. And that is our responsibility, okay? That is on us. If we allow ourselves to be unrooted, we'll get blown around this week, and we could find ourselves all of a sudden on directions that like are way out of alignment with our true north, okay? So anyway, if you have any questions, please let me know. If you have any comments, comment below. If you are looking for a personal reading, I do those as well. We can see how all this crazy energy this week is fitting in your chart. Other than that, enjoy your Sunday, and we'll see you next week on Memorial Day weekend. Take care.